After reviewing indie games for a few years now, I wanted to put together a list of the favorite ones that I've played. This is not going to be a best of list. It's just going to be a, general, these are my favorites so far. I'm not going to limit it to any specific genre. It's going to cover all of the ones that I've reviewed at this point, both for my blog and also for my YouTube channel. So let's get into this list. I did my best to keep it as short as I could, and here we go. So we're going to start off with Road 96. This is one of the best games that I have played for 2025. It has a fantastic story and setting, which really carried me through the game. The gameplay is pretty minimal. It's an adventure game, so you're walking around in a somewhat open environment. Once you get to specific locations, then you kind of do a few little tasks. You might meet one of the other main characters in this, and that will advance one of the storylines going on here. You play as a series of nameless kids who are trying to escape a totalitarian country. There is also an election going on, so there's propaganda everywhere. Most of it is for the government, as the opposition has a fairly minimal presence. You've got a lot of control over where the story goes and how the game actually evolves. It's pretty cool to see something like this. It isn't the best game ever. It still has a few flaws in the graphics and gameplay department, but overall I loved the story, and that's really what got me through this game, just seeing what happens next. Camp Sunshine is another game that I played recently, and it probably will end up on my best games list for 2025 unless something else shows up on here. It's a very fun adventure horror game where you explore a summer camp and also the woods kind of surrounding that camp. You play as a troubled teen who is sent off to Camp Sunshine. Your parents are going through a divorce, your mom thinks this will be a good experience for you, and on your first night, you wake up and most of the people are dead, and there is a killer running around just killing everybody. It's a really cool concept, especially, for a game like this. It isn't too long, but it's got a really fun story. It feels like it was a lost, 1980s or 1990s slasher. There are a lot of callbacks to horror movies from that time period. It's just a lot of fun to play. The graphics are cool and the story is great. Tavern Talk is a visual novel where you play as an innkeeper. The game has a large cast of characters. Most of the game involves just you creating quests for them and making drinks that will help them on those quests or with whatever they're planning on going to do. There is an overarching narrative in the game which gets into your character's past. It's pretty fun to see that evolve over the course of the game. In Tavern Talk's main storyline, you're trying to help all of the adventurers that you've met as they attempt to stop the end of the world. This is where the game delves into really the innkeeper's past. It's pretty interesting how all of this plays out. I feel like there is quite a bit of control that you have over this and how the people interact with you. All the characters are pretty fun. There is one that I particularly love that I wish was in the game more, but it wouldn't really fit the overall story. The gameplay and the graphics are very good, but yeah, it's really the story that gets me through this one. If you can't tell, I really focus on the story in these games, and Urban Myth Dissolution Center has a fantastic story. It is one of the games that made me want to get back into writing, to be honest. The game has a main character who's investigating several seemingly unconnected urban myths. There's also a terrorist organization that's trying to get justice for an unsolved murder. All of this stuff does tie together at the end, and yeah, I kind of saw the twist coming at the end, but I didn't see the other one coming, where it shows all the people that you've been working with, they did commit the murder and they're kind of responsible for it. And then you get who all of these characters actually are that you've been playing as, which is pretty cool. The graphics and the gameplay are Well, the graphics are much better than the gameplay. Let me put it at that. The gameplay isn't as good, but the story and the graphics are great. Banner of the Maid is a fantastic tactical RPG that is set in an alternate history where you pick up with the French Revolution. There is some magic that's going on here. Several characters are what are essentially witches in this game's world. It's kind of cool to see this whole thing kind of play out and how they've altered the story and the events of the French Revolution in order to create something new and kind of fun. You play as Pauline Napoleon, and you have to navigate the political scene of the Terror. This was a period of the French Revolution where, Robespierre was going around just beheading everybody. This is around the time when the royal family was basically killed off. And yeah, it's kind of fun to see you go through all of this and how they changed history in order to make, at least in my opinion, a better video game than just following historical events. So I really like creepy stories, and Grizzly Man definitely fits that bill. It's pretty cool. I just got a big smile on my face while I was playing through this one. It's a visual novel about an Alaskan tour guide who used to work for the Men in Black, or at least it's alluded that he did work for them. This game sort of ties into 3 other games from this developer. It's a pretty fun story. You've got the Grizzly Man. He's a killer running around trying to get salmon eggs out of people because he is crazy, and he was apparently brainwashed by the MK Ultra program. There's a lot going on here. It's pretty cool. It's a very fun and stylish game. I really love this developer, to be honest. I think they create some of the best visual novels out there. It's just a lot of fun, and it looks really great. I love the pixel art in this game. The puzzles are fairly simple, but the story's excellent. At the time of me recording this, Dungeon Inn is still in early access, but what is available to the player is very good. The story revolves around, you trying to earn money to pay back a dragon who acts as your landlord. You're running an inn that caters to 2 rival guilds. You have to keep these 2 guilds apart and kind of keep suspicion off yourself as to, what you're actually doing. It's kind of fun. I really like that aspect of the game. You've got a lot of tricks that you can use in order to keep the 2 guilds apart, and you'll also get quests that, cause a little bit of conflict for you, where you'll have to take certain actions and different decisions. It's a pretty great game. So far, you can't go through the whole thing, and right now it leaves you off on a cliffhanger, but they are still adding content to it, so that's always good. Hopefully when there is a full release, I can put out a much longer video on it. Scarlet Hollow is an episodic visual novel that is still being worked on. There are currently 4 episodes with a few more planned. I really like the story so far, and I think the graphics are amazing. I really love this game. The story follows the player's character as they return to a town for their aunt's funeral. This is a company town where your family owns everything, including the coal mine. From here, you explore the town, meet different people, and you'll have to deal with some pretty crazy shit. And I'm glad that the game at points, explains, hey, you probably should have left. Because there's just so much crap happening to your character, you'll just sort of imagine, maybe I shouldn't be here right now. Each episode revolves around a cryptid or a ghost, and the game even addresses why your character simply hasn't left. It's pretty fun. I love it so far, and I'm looking forward to the other episodes coming out. Faster Than Light is a roguelike strategy game where you control a spaceship that is fighting against a rebellion. You are fighting on the side of the Space Federation. You don't really get much more than that, and you don't really need much more than that. It does offer a lot of experimentation because you have a bunch of different ships that you can use as well as different loadouts. The game is going to change each time you go through it, so you can't do the same thing twice. The story is very simple because you don't need some grand story for a game like this. You're just moving your ship across, a section of space and then jumping to another section to do the same thing. This all leads up to you trying to destroy the Rebel flagship. It's pretty cool. I like it quite a bit. Some of the ships are not my favorite, and some of them, are pretty awesome. There are a few similarities between Dream Warrior and Faster Than Light, and that makes Dream Warrior pretty cool. It manages to combine Dragon Quest with FTL, and it creates a roguelike that is quite a bit of fun. The graphics are similar to the first Dragon Quest game, and the way you move through the game is very similar to FTL. There's not as much variation in your path, but that's not really a bad thing. The developer has been adding more to this game, so there are now several endings to it. And while I love the original ending, it is nice to have more options. It's pretty cool. You play as a drunk who is trying to defeat the Dark Lord, and your character class is determined by what alcohol he consumes. So if you take whiskey, you're going to be a mage, or if you take grog, you're going to be this character. It's really cool. It's just a fun game. It doesn't take too long, but it is a lot of fun. I think Arcadian Atlas is a fantastic game. The story does get overly complicated, and many of the characters, their stories kind of end in a depressing way. Even if it's how the character arcs were always going to end, it still feels a little bit like a downer when you get through it. The gameplay is very good. I think the graphics are beautiful. The weak point really is the story in this one. This is a tactical RPG where a civil war is broken out between the queen and the princess after the queen murders the king. At least that's how it's suggested. I don't know. This is probably the game that has the weakest story out of everything on this list. Aside from the issues with that story, I think the gameplay and the graphics are great. The ending is actually awesome. Once you get through the whole thing and you watch all the way through the credits, then you get an end credit scene, which is very good. Mothman 1966 is the first game in a trilogy. It begins with two characters going to a gas station to watch like a meteor shower or a comet. From there, the game takes just a wild turn and takes you on a ride, which is really awesome. So when these meteors come, it causes like a bunch of mutations, and that's how you get the Mothmen. You also get like rabbit men, dog men, a whole bunch of other mutants, and you have to kill them all off. There's also the Men in Black in this game. You get introduced to a few of the characters that you're going to see in the other games in this, developer's relatively short series of video games. It's kind of an awesome story. The puzzles and the mini games in it are a little challenging at times, but they're not impossible to solve. I think this is quickly becoming my favorite out of their first three games, so yeah, there's that. Firewatch has one of the best stories that I have ever seen in a video game. There are three characters who are all dealing with problems in different ways. They all have pretty much the same problem of loss. You have one character who's dealing with it by, just going through his investigation, coming to terms with what happened. You have another character who is just getting drunk. And then you've got a guy who pretty much abandoned civilization and just lives in this section of a park that you are working in. The opening scene is really kind of a rough ride to get through, but it does set up why your character volunteers to go be a forest ranger. It's a great game. I love the graphics. I love the gameplay. I do like the interactions with, the only other character that you talk to in this game. It's a really cool thing to go through. I really dug it when I played it just a little while ago. It's just a fun game. Cosmic Star Heroine reminds me of the Phantasy Star series. This is a shorter RPG, about 10 hours or so, but it takes the player on a fun trip around an alien solar system. It has everything that I would have wanted from a Phantasy Star 5. The story and the graphics are awesome. It looks like it could have been on like the PS1 or the Sega Saturn or even on the N64. It also has a fairly unique combat system that I really wasn't too sure about at first, but it really grew on me as the game went on. The story revolves around a conspiracy with a corrupt government agency that's attempting to seize control of the solar system through like mind control and other crap. And as you go through the game, it turns out that everything is being manipulated by a much larger threat, a whole supercomputer thing. It's pretty awesome. It's alluded to that it's going to happen again, so yeah, but it's been such a long time that I don't think we're ever going to get a sequel to this. It's a really cool game, and I love that, it has all these parallels with Phantasy Star. Killer Frequency feels like it used the plot from a lost 1980s slasher movie. It takes place in a small town where the locals talk about a creepy legend that has to do with a serial killer. The residents all have a dark secret that they're trying to hide, and you play as an outsider who shows up and runs a radio station that for some bizarre reason is taking all the 911 calls to it. It's a very fun story. This is a really cool adventure game. The graphics are fun, the story is great, and that's pretty much why I like it. Sea of Stars was my game of the year from a few years ago. I really loved this story. The graphics are great, the characters are awesome, the gameplay is a lot of fun. It just reminded me of all the RPGs that I played when I was a kid. It takes a little while for the game to get going. The main characters were born to be warriors, they're fighting against some evil entity, and there's a little bit of a twist at the beginning where you get betrayed by the two people who are training you. It felt like there was a lot of lore and history behind this game that I was kind of missing, but it was cool to go through it and learn some of the new stuff in here. It's a really fun game. I really loved it. Like, you're just trying to deal with this conflict between two much stronger entities than you are. And yeah, there's all this other stuff that feels like there's 2 or 3 more stories that could be told out of this whole game. It's pretty cool. I really, really love Sea of Stars. Oxenfree is a great story about a group of friends who are having a party on a remote island after graduating from high school. The story is kind of like a ghost story I would have heard when I was on a camping trip when I was younger. This is one of the first indie games that I ever played, and I kept coming back to it over the years just because I loved it so much. The story and the graphics are very good. The music is excellent. I really love the music and the sound in this game. The puzzles are alright. You do get rewarded for kind of exploring everything. Several of the puzzles get easier as you go through the game, just because you've learned what you need to do. They're a little repetitive, but not too much. I picked this game over the sequel because of how many times I've gone back to play it. The first game also, I think, has a better story and better characters in it, and it felt like a bit of a fresh idea when I first played it. Oxenfree is a really fun mystery adventure game. I don't want to call it a horror game because it didn't really scare me that much, but it does have a few horror elements to it. Judgment Apocalypse Survival Simulation is a strategy game that I keep coming back to from time to time. You control a group of survivors in the aftermath of a demonic invasion. Most of the game has you just building a city, going through the different research trees, and trying to do your best in order to gather resources, fight back against the demons, and eventually go through a pretty interesting story. There are some difficulty spikes in this game where the game is assuming that you've researched certain things that maybe you haven't been able to because you don't have the correct resources for it. But overall, it's a very fun game. It's one of those overlooked games that I find extremely fun. The gameplay is wonderful. I really like the story. I like how it kind of splits between doing something like a cult in order to end the game or doing something scientific to end the game. And yeah, it's just a fun kind of sandbox that you can ignore the main story and just do whatever you want in. Spiritfarer is a wonderful and really heartfelt game about helping people deal with their own deaths. Your character sails around on a boat and talks to various people. You're trying to help them as they, struggle with what they were doing in life and help them cross over. It's kind of fun. You take over from Sharon as being, the Spiritfarer. You have to build a boat and make all of your spirits happy. And yeah, it's kind of a cool way of going through things. At times it feels like it's just a fishing simulator, but you also have some farming that you can do. You've got some cooking that goes on. You can build up your ship and, make it larger, build little houses for all the different people. It's a really cool game to go through. So far, I've just really enjoyed it. I don't think I've found everything in this game, but it is just a lot of fun to play. It also looks really good, and the gameplay is very good. Stardew Valley is one of my favorite games of all time. It took everything that I liked about the farming/life simulation games and vastly improved on all of them. Everything about this game is great. I find it just extremely relaxing. Normally I focus on the game's story, but in this case, it's really not all that important for Stardew Valley. I really couldn't care less about the overall story in this game. It's nice that it's there, but what I really like is the freedom to really do as you please within this whole little environment that they have. You can become friends with whoever you want. You can try to marry one of the different girls or guys in this game. There's just a lot of freedom that you have, and that's something that makes this game really stand out. It just looks happy, and it makes me feel happy. While this was a long list, it's still just a small number of the indie games that I've played since really starting my blog and also my YouTube channel. I found most of these games to be way more interesting than the AAA games out there from larger studios. The developers here often take chances, or they take an old idea and put a new spin on it. And that's something that I like a lot more than just, releasing the same first-person shooter or action RPG that just happens to be like Dark Souls over and over again. Since I started playing more indie games, I've found a new appreciation for just a few genres out there that I normally would have avoided like the plague. While I've always liked RPGs, I've started to play a lot more adventure games and also visual novels. They offer something that I don't really get from some of the more popular games. As I go through this, I'll update the list again, just as I've played more games, much like every other list that I've done. So at some point, I'll go through, do one just for the visual novels, one for just the indie RPGs, and then maybe I'll update this as I feel a need to. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.